Ladies and gentlemen, this is episode 17 of the Wachama Talks. My guest today is Joaquim Moura from Brazil. Welcome.
Thank you, Joe.
This is your fourth trip to Europe with a special focus on networking and raising awareness about the importance of Brazil because of the social and environmental issues. You are a networker, an educator, an activist. You are also a pensioner. So since 2000 you are retired. So you are doing this from your heart for the community and for the people. You are also since 2000 volunteer translator of the RUAF Foundation. This is a foundation which has a major role in researching and educating on urban agriculture, and so far you translated 30 editions or more, thousands of articles about food and urban issues and social issues. Your main focus is youth, as they have a major role in our future, and the activities that you are involved in, they are vary from composting to community building, local food production, education about ethics. So Joaquim, welcome on the show, and please complete my introduction if you have anything important to add.
Yes. There is a focus also on development youth. The work with the students focus also in team building, project elaboration, funds, income generation, and many things that we call democratic arts that involve this kind of skills, to work together, to plan together, to evaluate, to monitor, to divulge, communicate, etc. It's very important for their future.
Yeah, and you are using a holistic approach while doing all of your activities, right?
Yes.
There is no one specific solution. It should be integrated in one another, and it should be somehow circular and somehow, in a line with nature.
I suppose this is maybe the more original idea of my work, is to really be holistic, including, let's say, ethics education, bodily practice like yoga, tai chi chuan, all together.
Nice. And your journey started from the Copacabana.
Exactly.
And this is one of the most famous beaches of Brazil, or in the world.
Yes.
And as far as I know, you grew up in a little bit mixed environment. It was partly influenced by the local community and lifestyle, the typical Copacabana lifestyle with I don't know, football and cocktails and whatever, dancing, samba. And the other part was this post-World War countercultural seekers who were into more the spiritual part. And
yes.
Can you tell us something? How was your life in the 50s and 60s? Because you were born in 1947, right?
47, yes, last century. Okay, I lived in a very urban situation in Copacabana, one of the most dense neighborhoods in the world. And so, but at the same time, when I was 16, maybe I became interested in yoga and Indian, Eastern philosophies, religions, Buddhism, etc. And so, at the same time, I was involved, influenced by the leftist way of see the world, etc. But when I was maybe 20 years old, I was introduced, let's say, to macrobiotics,
Microbiotics.
Not micro, because
Macro-
micro
ma-
is small.
Macrobiotics, yeah.
So it was the first time that we heard about that industrialized food was not good, that many diseases are results from the wrong way of nutrition.
Yeah.
And so I thought it very interesting, and from that time I became more interested also in agriculture.
It's also called Zen macrobiotics, right? Is it from an Eastern origin, from Japan?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. This I read. This is the traditional way of eating in Japan, the monasteries, the Zen Buddhism, etc. But when it arrived in the West, it used that name, macrobiotica in Portuguese, and introduced us with many different kinds of foods. And that I said that the Occidental, the Western way of eating was completely wrong.
Yeah.
We should avoid refined sugar, refined rice, refined wheat, etc. And also and introduced us with miso made of soybeans and salt, and show you the soybeans. Okay, so many people became macrobiotic in Brazil. Many artists, and also that idea, what you eat you are, comes from this time.
Yeah, and also this more holistic view on from an energetic perspective. Can you elaborate on that?
Macrobiotic didn't care about proteins, vitamins, mineral salts, etc. They are focusing on if the food is yin or yang. Okay, and so if you are too yin, you can become ill. So you must look for yang food. That symbol, white and black with that complementary dots. The first time I saw this symbol was with macrobiotica. So what?
It can be a little bit confusing because it's an old concept, like almost 100 years old. And I was referring on the energetic way that because there are so many other insights and new studies that maybe the specific food is not really the issue, or not really the way what we have to necessarily follow, but the philosophy behind it, like to have the balance with your surroundings, right? So that was what I'm more referring to, not the yin and yang part. It's also partly true, but what also you mentioned in one of your articles, that try to source your food within 50 kilometers, because all of the energy from the soil and back and your relation to your direct environment will reflect you on a much better way.
You define it perfectly, better than I could. Now many people say that eat local food because of the emission, the gas emission and other problems, but they were already talking about this from another point of view. This point of view you talked about, the energetic field, you must be harmonized with.
Yeah, because that's what is one of the biggest problems with today's world, that we are not aware of what resources are needed to have bread on our table. We don't see the whole process, how certain food products get on the shelves in the shops. And but with this philosophy, you can have a much broader overview about your food and the philosophy behind it. In general, you said that you became more interested in agriculture and where the food is coming from. But how did it change your life? Did it take some new direction, your life?
I am a baby boomer, so I lived all those happenings, May 68, and the plastics material arriving, and the sexual revolution, rock and roll. And so I lived well these times. And I work at the same time, since I was 19 years old, I entered the Brazilian Central Bank. It was recently created, and the first competition to join the bank, I was accepted. And so I had the two sides at the same time. Baby boomer culture and central bank
So
culture.
very materialistic, money-based culture.
Yes. I studied economics, and in the bank I work with the economic department, relationship with the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, etc. And at the same time, when I arrived at home, I was another person. And then I perceived that the economy that they taught at the university did not consider the environment. They don't anything, just the
social aspects are not considered.
Yes. And they did include in their studies publicity, how publicity interfere, how can you discuss consumerism and the law of the offer and the law of offer and the demand. If you don't consider that publicity is interfering and change, okay, so I became very deceived. Not satisfied with this kind of
disappointed.
Disappointed, of course.
And you lived this life for 10 years, and after 10 years you decided to leave your job for an unpaid leave.
But before leaving for a while of 10 years the bank, I changed my studies to design. I perceived that economics, I thought that studying economics would lead me to discuss the future, what can we do, etc., what's going on. But they have a lot of econometric, statistical, account, etc. I didn't like. I want to discuss why Brazil is this way, how could it change. So I disappointed, changed my studies to design, where I thought I would be more able to help society, designing environment, objects, products,
so you
visual
have seen
communications.
it as a design problem. So how we live our life in the cities, what is going wrong, it can be approached from a design perspective and could be redesigned to another way.
Yes, could help. And then in the central bank, I changed it from the economic department to the museum. They have a museum, and I designed the museum, the exhibition, museum of coins and bills, Brazilian and foreign. So I designed books, pamphlets, leaflets, etc. And I also wrote designed the house organs of the bank, about the bank. But I also always introduced my articles about microcredit, local currency, and exercises against stress and things. So, but then I decided to give up. I thought, no, all this will end soon. Central bank will end soon. Every the civilization will end soon.
That was in the 70s, when the oil crisis was in
shortly before. I exited the bank. I asked a license without payment.
Like unpaid leave.
And I went with a friend we bought a small farm, and with our wives and sons and friends, we started a community. And then came the crisis, and everything became more difficult. The farm was too far away from Rio, and so we, after 3 years, we left there. I came back to Rio, and I joined the environmental agency of Rio de Janeiro. I was already writing articles for the main newspapers about ecology, environment, food, nutrition, agriculture, all these things. And with these articles, I was invited to join that agency, environment, in a group called a section called Eco Development, where I was supposed that I would have opportunity to create community gardens in favelas and other neighborhoods, etc. But it's very formal, bureaucratic. Nothing really happens.
It was not a hands-on experience. Just they wanted you to write some studies about that or some.
No, let's do something. Okay, let's do. But then they don't have time enough to really get involved, and so things don't happen. And then the crisis was increasing, and I decided to go back to the bank.
So it was financially not sustainable for you to.
Yes, in the bank, in the central bank, I would be better paid. So I returned. And after more 15 years, etc., I got retired. But since that time, I was always working with urban agriculture, etc.
But I've seen on your profile that you have also visited the U.S. a couple of times between 92 and 2000.
Yes.
And what was your takeaway? What was your experience?
When I lived in Brasilia. Now I don't live anymore in Brasilia, but when I worked in the central bank, I lived in Brasilia
city,
Brasilia, the capital of Brazil. And there I met, giving free classes of Tai Chi Chuan, I met a lady, a woman, that invited me to join her, the NGO where she acted. And so it was an NGO linked to NGO in the United States. And so I had a relation with American educators, and they invited me 3 times to visit the United States.
And what was this NGO about? What did they do?
They do projects in partnerships with, mainly they are educators, scholars that have lived in the United States, or American who lived in Brazil, and so they want to keep them in touch, develop projects in partnerships.
But what is the focus of these projects?
Many. Okay. They are cultural, artistic, environmental, youth development. With them, the first time I visited the project of youth development for age, very important, 5 million kids involved every year. And the second time was to learn about microcredit, when I met Muhammad Yunus, the founder of Grameen Bank, etc., and other agencies that work with microcredit. And the third time was to visit schools that were and are applying the method of ethics education, named character counts. Okay, and so I'm always trying to introduce this learning, this knowledge I have, but difficult. But because people, they are not really interested in new things, in different things. Mainly if it comes from the United States. Oh, United States. But what can I do? I learned, I saw how important it is. So I I included it in my portfolio
Yeah.
of ideas and suggestions. Recently, very recently, 1 month ago, for the first time, I could do an activity with the Secretary of Education of the municipality where I live about ethics education. 18 years after I had visited the United States.
And how many students were involved in this workshop? It was a one-day workshop, or was it longer?
No. It was just a morning.
Okay.
On Monday, and the following Monday again with other students, of course. I gave the same practice, dynamics, because this methodology is not to talk about respect, no, they are all based on dynamics, group dynamics, and games, things like this that make the students, the young, involved. It was
and
incredible.
Aware, how to treat others.
Yes. I can give it after, in some way, give the address of the page on the internet about this, also in English, so everybody interested
we can put it in the comment section.
Perfect.
Yeah, and the main takeaway was, the main message for the student was that treat others the same way how you would like to be treated, right?
Yes, yes. This is the pillar of respect.
The golden rule.
Yes, in discussing, working with respect, but the methodology work with 6 pillars. Sincerity, that involves also honesty, integrity, loyalty, trustworthiness. The other pillar is respect. The other one is responsibility. The other is caring. The other is fairness. And the last one is citizenship. So they have dynamics about these 6 pillars according the age level for children, for adolescents. And so it's very easy to apply. It's very explained how to do, what to do. And very effective.
Are you planning to give more workshops in the neighboring schools? Was it well received from the students?
Of course, because shortly after these 2 experiences, these 2 opportunities, I travel to Europe. But whenever I come back, I will talk to the people of the Secretary of Education. What we'll do next? Maybe choose 1 or 2 pilot schools and do it more consistently. And the people from the Secretary that came to see me working with the students, they perceived very well how involved the youngsters were discussing about how they don't like to be treated. I don't like this, and in groups writing what I don't. Maybe for the first time in their life, they had 15-20 minutes just thinking about, writing about what they consider unrespectful behavior.
What hurts them? What hurts their heart?
And from this, they perceived, after the dynamics, they perceived that this is the way we don't like to be treated, so we don't treat the other the same way.
Nice. Okay. Well, success with this new projects in the coming time. And so, since 2000, you are retired, right? More or less.
98.
Already
20 years now.
But you
but
were
working more.
You are maybe more active than ever. Than in your banking career. And but since 2000, you got the realization that all of the activities, or most of the activities, what you were involved, like even 20 years ago, like 20 years back, like from now 40 years back almost, that those activities are kind of falling under the umbrella term of urban agriculture. And you realize that, oh, this term, I'm already busy with these topics, and then you found the RUAF Foundation. How did you start this?
It's fun because when I started to work with urban agriculture, I didn't have noticed this expression. Maybe this expression did exist in 78. Maybe, I'm not sure. But we called it community gardening, like this, not urban agriculture. Only in 2000, maybe, with internet, I perceived that this was something very important. Very many people were discussing this, developing projects, and they used that expression, urban agriculture. And I discovered RUAF Foundation that published, in that time they still publish the magazine, but in that time they published the magazine in 6 languages: English, French, Spanish, Arabic, Turkish, Chinese, 6. And so I wrote them, why not Portuguese? Portuguese, Brazil, Portugal, Angola, Mozambique, etc. And they agreed to pay me, not too much. I suppose I'm the cheaper translator in the world. Okay, but I was so involved with the matter that I want to do. Of course, I want to translate, and I have already translated 34 editions. All the 34 editions they do two per year, 2 per year. So in 70 years, 34. And for the first time in the next edition, I will have an article from myself about urban agriculture and youth development. And
and this is basically your current project, which
yes,
is ongoing
yes,
in 6 schools in your area.
Yes.
Nice. What was because I see that there is also approach from a holistic perspective, like food, organic waste management, income generation, and sustainability, and you put the focus on the youth, as they are, as I already mentioned, that they have a key role in tackling problems. They have to be involved too. So how did it start? Has it started 2-3 years ago?
Yes, of course. I have been working in schools, in school gardening. 30 years ago I was doing this. In 82 I worked with 13 schools. But the concept, the plan, the methodology that I use now is the most original feature maybe of my project is not working with every student, with all the students in a school. This is so my idea is to invite these students to join a group and create a group of social environmental practices, as I call it. And then we put some posters, small posters, inviting them. Hey, young man and girl, come join the group. You will learn things. You do what you like to do. You have fun. You will learn to work together, other people, network with other schools, even in the foreign countries. So there are many abilities and skills, capacity that you will have opportunity to develop.
Do you promote also the fact that they can be involved in entrepreneurship and maybe earn a little bit of money, or is just you say it later?
So this is a process. So I am starting organizing the groups. In each school, I must, of course, find some teacher that wants to be the facilitator of the group. And so we are starting with composting, because the residues are always there. in every school.
From kitchen waste.
Yes,
Right.
yes,
That's
and the canteen, and the students are there, and the teachers. So we don't need money, nothing, just to organize. The problem that I see is more of organization than of money.
Yeah, I mean, my question was regarding to the income generation part of the project, but
so we are
comes later.
Yes.
Because the value is there. If you can circulate the value in your community, then it will also produce income.
Of course.
Yeah.
But I noticed that the Brazilian schools are not allowed to develop, to sell things. They are not allowed. But I am explaining the principals, the teachers, that this is not an activity of really earn money using the school to earn money. No. It is a project, the income generation activities is to pedagogical activity, to teach the students how to work together, how to devise a business plan.
Entrepreneurial skills.
Yes, that's it. So please tell the authorities that we are not using the school to earn money. No, it's for pedagogical objectives. But this will come maybe next year. In Brazil, everything is very slow. And I have two mottos. The first one came from Peter Drucker. He said, time is the critical factor. It's not a very original phrase. Anybody could perceive this. But he said, and I adopted, time is the critical factor in a project.
You have to be patient, you mean? I mean,
no, but
that's what I also experienced with this show series. That you have the enthusiasm, but you have to be patient.
Yes, but making things happen, rhythm. And then I added one other motto from myself. That is, communication comes shortly after. Time, rhythm, and communication. So I'm here. And I write and I talk and every time. You know how much I talk.
And so you have 6 schools in 3 municipalities, right?
Yeah.
And roughly, can you give us an estimation how many students are already involved in these projects?
And let's say that 6, 7 in each school, with 1 or 2 teachers. But what they do, they show to the other students. The other students see them doing interesting things. And so in the process, I think the idea is to reach everyone, but it takes time.
So, for example, the biology teachers have a major role, like from the composting onwards, or the principles, and you can also kind of connect certain educational activities in related to biology, chemistry.
They can monitor the quantity of residues that they are saving from the wasting there away. They are composting, so they can do a little of statistics and of administration. So they get complete and wide understanding of the problem, and some of them are developing activities from themselves, by themselves. Okay, for instance, in a group decided to produce a video about what they are doing with composting. So it's not just compost. Suddenly it's also video making, planning the video, discussing, writing a script, and editing it. So other skills are developed. Okay.
I really like the major role of composting. Like if you look up any permaculture books, they also start with composting, and basically all life starts and ends in compost. So we also gonna end in some kind of compost at one point.
Of course. So compost and use.
Yeah.
These are my two legs of my work, the two channels.
What is the next step in this project?
Making it increases and join more schools. I think that it's a way to free the youngsters from the current vision that left and right. So they fight against fascista, nazista, comunista.
Divide and
and
conquer.
they don't do nothing. They just shout at each other, etc. And so with these groups of socio-environment practice, they will understand that, okay, shout a little, but the most important is the work. Do things, show things being done, well done, okay? The ethical education, the excellence, the search for excellence in our culture, it's not really usually valorized.
Validated. Or valorized?
It's something that you give value to, you consider important. No, they are, Here in Europe, of course, you have another culture, more serious, let's say. You yourself, more than me, no? Okay. So
I also like to be playful. Don't get me as the serious guy.
And so I think this is important to show them how do you do here and learn something with them. I think that we also have something to bring it, to show you, of course.
Sure.
Of course. But if we consider the results, we must look to European culture, the way they do, you see,
So this is your fourth time when you are here with the specific purpose of visiting projects and network and get people involved somehow in your activities. What is the main takeaway so far from this year? Has anything changed from your first visit?
I think the most important, the highest point is to be here with you doing this podcast. And another point, every time I come here, everything I see, I write a report in Portuguese and also in English, commenting it, showing pictures, etc. I came here in 2015 for an international conference on agriculture in urbanizing society in Roma. Second time for a course on entrepreneurship in urban agriculture in Bologna University. The third time, again in Bologna, the seminar symposium, international symposium, Greener Cities. And this time, no event, just visits and here. But every occasion, I wrote articles, I wrote reports, because in Brazil, I'm not talking about the common person, but even the people who work with urban agriculture, agroecology, etc., they are not informed about what's going on, mainly here in Europe. And in the United States, Brazil is very far away from Europe, from United States, so they think that the world is like Brazil. Okay, they don't have the idea that what are you other people doing, very important, including in the Netherlands, that I perceived that is the capital of urban agriculture. Maybe mainly because of RUAF Foundation and the magazine, but also the project I saw, very developed here. No?
Actually, urban agriculture was always part of the cities.
Yes,
Since
yes.
like if you go on a boat trip in Amsterdam, they're gonna tell you that behind those huge buildings there were gardens for food. So it's just mainly this post-war industrialized agriculture. Since it's here and the supermarkets, that was the turning point when cities became unaware of their food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, here much more than in Brazil. In Brazil, just small towns with old people. They have their garden in their backyards. But mainly the youth, they don't consider. They don't care about producing their own food.
Yeah, I think it's a universal thing. So what I see also among people who are kind of turning back to rural areas, like what you did when you were around 30 and you moved away. That's people starting their families or in their 30s. It's the time when they realize that okay, there is value, there is health, the children have to grow up somewhere, they have to access to healthy food, fresh air. So that's the point when a part of the population decides to go and live on rural areas, and a tiny fraction of that wants to get involved in food production too. Yeah, but it's not just a Brazilian thing to be disconnected from food. Like if I look at myself or the younger generations, there is so many automation and so many other good stuff to do, interesting stuff, that it's easy to distract them the importance of food, and it's a global phenomenon. But it's very nice that you pointed out.
Yes, I suppose that producing food nowadays can be very fun also, interesting, challenging. You may be a farmer, but you can have your computer and you can network worldwide. So it's just a matter of
design.
And make them understand this. Of course, there is also a necessity of make it viable. Their work organize how they will make a living on this. Of course, not just you need to make money, okay? But it's possible. I think it's possible.
And I totally understand the youngsters' perspective. I mean, I had a very extreme experience. I was working on the field since I was 5, and not in some. Okay, we had also our family gardens, but I often found myself when I was 5, 6, or 10, like in 5 hectares of sugar beet plantation. Okay, you have to weed it, or corn or whatever, and you are in. And that's actually the industrial agriculture's picture. What most of the youngsters have, that it's somewhere out there on the farm. You are alone. It's dirty. It's not fun to do. It's hard work. And of course it's hard work, and that way of big plantations and have physical labor there, you are just a tiny little mouse or whatever if you see those big plantations. But if you see urban gardens or community gardens where other peoples are also there, and there is some hard work but there is also some social interaction, then the whole perception, and some music, some art, some cooking, then the whole idea of food production shifts to a totally different dimension.
Yes. I read someday that in Israel, the kibbutz, they are scholars, academics, but they love to garden. And I read they garden by the night, without sun, LED lamps and music, classic music.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
know that it can be fun, can be interesting. Oh,
Yeah, so that's the other important thing, that it's also happening in the all agricultural food related research and the industry and also policy making, that those who are, or many of those who are like saying the rah rah political agenda, we have to feed the world, la la la, they have never ever done anything food related. So
Yes.
that's what I also like to point out. That's a beautiful idea, a beautiful example when leaders are also involved in hands-on experiences and actually they know what they are talking about. That would be beautiful.
There is something that I noticed after these events that I came to participate, is that they don't show. I think they don't have. If they have, they don't show a real commitment to work together to keep them connected after the event. Yeah, after the event ends, oh, goodbye, see you next year somewhere.
Yeah.
Okay, they don't have a focus on to make things happen. They just research.
Yeah, you mean the academic community.
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
there is
that-
you can find very often that they have to also dedicate themselves to academic, because
Yeah.
the academic environment is also very competitive.
Yes,
So it's also about their focus. But
Uh-huh.
indeed, that's what I'm also missing. And for example, in my studies, after I studied rural sociology and all of these issues what we were talking about, I studied entrepreneurship here to actually bridge this link between theories and ideas and action. And that's why this urban entrepreneurship and urban green train project is very nice, that actually we have these ideas, but we also have to generate a new entrepreneurial generation who will actually take action on a slightly different way than just the simple capitalist model. Of course, there should be a business model, but also the social and environmental aspects should be considered. Yeah.
Yeah, you see this course, UGT, Urban Green Train. The project ended. They had a budget, financing from the European Union, and many professors from universities of Italy, France, Germany mainly.
The
And
Netherlands.
No,
Yeah?
no, the Netherlands, rough people, etc. But they are not. No, I could
Okay.
say that more. Italy, France, and
Yeah.
Germany. Okay, and then the project has a deadline. Oh, it's over. It's over. They don't care about what comes next.
Yeah, because they have their own profession
Yes,
of research.
I
but
know.
the
I'm
other-
commenting. it.
The other interesting experience what I had, those who are into these ideas, most of those people, including me and maybe yourself, when we want to implement these ideas and the shift towards action, the notion or the term of business comes in, and the business world got so corrupt and so manipulative, and most of the sociological studies is the business world is the blamed for everything. So that's what I see, that is also kind of blocking. Maybe it's an emotional blockage, because there is no other model to set up. You cannot go for a communist model because it's again very tyrannical and autocratic.
Yeah.
But you also don't want to go to the capitalist model. So maybe that's another reason why researchers or people who really put out great studies, there is a kind of blockage, a mental blockage in themselves, like how to put it in reality. I'm not defending them entirely,
okay,
but that's
no,
what I experienced.
noticed this. I perceived this for decades. Okay,
Yeah.
but you saw, you see, the UGT is ended. Now you go to the site of UGT. It's the same that was 2 years ago. They don't include it. For instance, how many people really followed the online course? You cannot learn this. Where is the evaluation? They did an evaluation 1 year ago. The evaluation was the final activity, the evaluation. But the evaluation is not available on their site. And I think that everything is important because UGT course is not for the current people, the present people. Maybe in 10 years or 20 years, other people would like to do something similar. And so it's important that in the site they can find the results, the effects. I have done the pictures of the course created the page about the course with the timetable, the classes, the people, pictures, etc. I did it. I suppose they should have done something to show the course how it was. So I think that I can collaborate with some ideas.
Yeah.
Because I think I perceive something are missing. Okay? Yes, no, this is a process.
Yeah. Yeah. But we can conclude that it was a very, for me, even if I was not following the progress or the course, I've just seen the articles and where the direction of the research was. I already felt energized, and I felt I can relate to these kind of researches. So I still conclude that it was a wonderful project, and we can conclude that although there is some lack of follow-up, but it was a nice project.
Yes,
Yeah.
no, I translated the curriculum. 276 pages. I translated because I perceived how important it was. But anyway, I think they should also have a shorter option, because 276 pages, only scholars will read it.
For real enthusiasts.
The practitioners would be better served with 40 pages. Okay. Maybe someone will, maybe I will look into it and make a shorter version. I thought to do it, but other things called me.
And what are your next steps when you go back? Is it 2 more days and you fly back to Rio?
Yes. Today I go to Paris and for 5 days in Paris, and then
romantic.
and then fly back to Brazil and contact the people. What are you doing? What have you done? Because they should be communicating more. I'm here and I don't know anything. And should communicate. Need to communicate.
Just to clarify to the people that you don't live in Rio anymore. You don't. You are not a resident of the Copacabana, drinking piña colada all day and watching girls and football. But you live in the countryside, right? In a it's an area between Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro
and Minas Gerais. So, where the 3 main states of Brazil they meet there in a mountain range. It's a high place and tourist place because very natural forests, waterfalls, cold weather. So tourists from Rio and São Paulo come in the weekends to have cold weather, wine, fireplaces. But anyway, very close to my house, there is a high school with 600 students. This school was hard to work with them. All these years, I lived there 15 years, I had I tried to work with them, but I never found some teacher really interested in to do things together in composting, school gardening. But now I found, shortly before I come, I found we organized the first and second meeting, and the plans, the posters to invite the students.
Okay, so that will be the next step to
because the other schools are 40 kilometers from my house, 160 kilometers from my house. This is 500 steps from my house, so very important.
And you are like you highlighted the importance of Brazil because it has such an enormous environmental impact on the whole world, because of its sheer size, like it's 8,800,000 square kilometers, something like that. So basically the size of the US or even bigger than Australia. But only 220 million people live there. So they are basically, if you, as an outsider, you would say, oh, they are spoiled with the resources, but it's not the case, because most of the people are living in the huge urbanized cities. So this area, what you said, this three, like Sao Paulo, Rio de Janeiro, and Minas Gerais. How many people live there, and more or less in these three regions? If you said this is the most important hub.
No, they are important states. Rio, state of Rio has the city of Rio. The state of São Paulo has the city of São Paulo and others. And the state of Minas Gerais has its capital, Belo Horizonte. But these are far away from where I live. Maybe 200 kilometers to Rio, 200 kilometers to São Paulo cities, né? And 300 to Belo Horizonte. Where I live is a small town by the mountains. So maybe where I live there is 1,000 people.
I understand that part, but if you see how huge Brazil is and how close relatively Rio and Sao Paulo to where you live, and how big cities are those, so you see that most of the population of Brazil live in these areas, or a big part of the population, right?
Right.
Yeah. So but that's why it's important
of course,
that you have still in reach, I don't say that it's very close, but in reach Rio and Sao Paulo. And if anything happens in your region and on the border of these three regions, somehow maybe the news or via the internet, if there is some good initiative is taken, somehow it can spread right away in three regions.
Yes. The region where I live is by the nature, etc. It belongs to what we call environment protection area of that range of mountains. This environment protection area includes 30 municipalities. Some from Rio, some from São Paulo, some from Minas, 30. And so what I'm doing, they know, the team that is a federal agency that takes care of this environment protection area. They are following what I'm doing. They perceive that I'm doing things very interesting. So shortly we will be able to suggest to the 30 municipalities who wants to do something similar with this student. So soon we will amplify wide the work, the project. There are also other environment protection areas in Brazil that we can also influence. And anyway, but Rio and São Paulo city, they are very huge, very complicated, favela, etc. São Paulo, maybe, I read this, is the biggest, largest metropolitan area of the South Hemisphere. and also the largest hemisphere, large of the Western Hemisphere. London is more or less the same. London. You see how important the largest of the South Hemisphere and of the Western Hemisphere at the same time.
Yeah.
And so how to reach it, how to interfere is the challenging.
Yeah, but the other thing is what many people take wrong. I think that what you do is with these little local communities and schools that can be replicated on another level, but we also don't have to force entire Rio or Sao Paulo to change.
Of course.
But there are neighborhoods, there are districts, there are communities who can who still have some resources, some land maybe, and who could show some interest and learn from the rural or semi-rural or peri-urban population to do these practices.
Yes.
So I think you are doing the good way.
Thank you, Joe.
Yeah. And do you think we covered most of the topics we wanted to cover?
I think
Because,
so. I'd like to inform the address of these pages, so anybody will find everything I talked here
in the description. We're gonna put the links in the description.
Yes, maybe 4 or 5.
Yeah, no worries. There is enough space for that. So thank you very much for stopping by and shared your stories, because you are a really change maker veteran, let's say, with your 50 years of background, and I wish you a lot of success.
Thank you.
And wish you a good trip back to Brazil.
And keep in touch.
Keep in touch.
Communication.
And whoever wants to do an internship or interested in similar projects, they can also write a message to me or Joaquim personally. So don't hesitate if you are interested in projects in Brazil. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe.
And say hi. Say hi to the people.
Hi, people. Very glad to talk to you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Ciao ciao.